Hey Math 8, today we are going to go ahead and jump into laws 5 and 6 of our laws of exponents. So before we start, this is the bell work that we did in class today if you missed. So if you want to go ahead and do this on your own and then turn it into me when you come back, that would be totally awesome. And then I can put that grade in the grade book for you. And we'll just go ahead and get started. So if you needed to go back and pause that, I mean, there's plenty of time that it was on the screen, so feel free to do that. Law 5 is powers raised to a power. Okay, so for law 5, it says when a power is raised to another power, we will multiply the exponents. Okay, and then I will also jump into why that is. So if we look at this example with x to the third squared, that can be simplified to x to the third times x to the third, right? Because I have two x to the thirds, as it says right here. So I can then, from here, break up each of these as well, even further. So I have x times x times x, and then x times x times x. Multiply those two together, I end up with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 x's. So that gives us x to the sixth. Okay, if I use the shortcut of just multiplying our exponents together, that would be x to the 3 times 2, which gives us x to the sixth as well. So you can see here that this method works to finding powers raised to a power. All right, and then we will go ahead and move on to these examples below. All right, so our first example, we have y to the fifth to the fourth. Again, all we have to do is multiply those two together. That'll give us y to the 20th. So that one is really simple. Okay, the next one. On these, I want to do the exact same thing as when I was multiplying and dividing. I'm going to separate my numbers from my variables to start, just to organize myself, make it a little bit easier on myself. So first, I'm going to do 3 to the third, right, because that has to happen. So I have 3 to the third here, and then I have times x to the third, and then don't forget this third as well. All right, if you want to use the parentheses there just to sort that out a little bit for yourself, that's fine. It's not required. So from here, we now have 3 to the third, which is 27, and then x to the third. I can multiply my exponents, which will give me x to the ninth. So our final answer here is 27x to the ninth. All right. The next example, we have 4 times, in parentheses, 5y squared. Okay. So on this, I'm going to go ahead and pull this 4 out and just pull it away from the parentheses. We're going to save it for last. Okay. Even though it's in the front, we're going to do it last. So now I'm just doing the same thing that I did on the last problem. I'm going to put that 2 onto both of these. Separate my numbers and my variables. So I have 5 squared, and then I have y squared. Okay, from here I can simplify. So I have 4 times 5 squared is 25, times y squared would be y to the 2 times 2, which is y to the fourth. And then I have 4 times 25, which is 100, y to the fourth. All right, and that's it for that problem. Okay, one more example. This one's a little bit trickier because it's longer, and we have to rely on some things that we learned in previous laws. So first of all, I'm going to go ahead and recognize that I have a negative here, and I just want to start by getting rid of that. Just like we did in multiplication and division, I want to get rid of that negative exponent to start. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and rewrite everything, not everything, but a lot of what I've got. Okay, so my 6 and my 2 will stay there. All right, and then my x, since this is negative, I know it needs to move down. And when it moves down, it flips to a positive 3. Okay, then I'm going to end up, and here I'll do it this way so that you can really see my step. Now it becomes x to the positive 3 because we get rid of our negative Nancy. We can cross it out. It's now a positive Patty on the bottom. Okay, and we have x squared times x to the third, okay, which means when we multiply, we're going to add the exponents, okay, just like we did a couple of days ago in law, what was that, 3? Okay, so we have x to the second plus the third, which is going to give us x to the fifth. All right, and now I'm on to my y's. Okay, so I have y to the fourth on top and then y on the bottom. Remember that when it's just y, that means y to the first. Okay, since they are on top and bottom, that means when we are dividing, which means we need to subtract our exponents. So we have 4 minus 1 to get rid of that, and we're just going to end up with y to the third on top. Okay, now I know that was quite a bit, but we're still not done. All right, so there's a little bit more to go. Okay, so don't forget your exponent here, right? That's what I just wrote up here. Okay, and then from here, I can go ahead and do the same thing that I did up in these problems, where I'm just going to go ahead and distribute that exponent onto everything. I'm going to break up my numbers from my variables. All right, so I'm going to end up with this. This should look familiar. It should look like law 4. Okay, I have 6 squared right here, and then I have 2 squared on the bottom, okay, because of this and this. All right, I'm going to erase those arrows just so we don't get too cluttered here. All right, then I have y to the third to the second. Okay, 3 times 2 is 6, so I then have y to the sixth, and then I have x to the fifth on the bottom, also to the second, which means I have x to the 5 times 2, which is 10. All right, and now I'm ready to move on again. 6 times 2 is, 6 squared is 36. And then I'm going to go ahead and put my y to the sixth in. And then 2 squared is 4. And I'm going to put my x to the 10th in. We are still not done. There is one final step to simplify. 36 and 4 are both divisible by 4. So I'm going to do that. Divide 36 by 4 to get 9. Then y to the sixth stays. The 4 divided by 4 is 1. So I can just ignore it and leave my x to the 10th on the bottom. Okay. All right, I know that was a lot of steps. It was a long process. Okay, so if you need to go over how we did it again, feel free. We also have these got it problems that are really good examples for what we just did, particularly C. If you struggled with this last example, C is just like that example. Okay, so that's the last one to look at. All right, so go ahead and pause the video. I want you to try all 3 got it problems. And then we will go ahead and move into law 6 as well. It's really short. I promise it'll take maybe a minute. Okay, so go ahead and do those got it problems. Resume when you're ready to go. All right, the final law 6, is fractional exponents. It's very simple, okay? If the exponent is a fraction, the denominator is your root. Okay, now it is possible to have things like this, where this number, the numerator, is not 1. However, we will not be doing that just now. Okay, so this is something you will see when you get into algebra, but for our purposes, you do not need to know it. This is just an intro to this idea of fractional exponents, okay? So if we look at an example, this first one is x to the 1/3 power. Very simple. The denominator becomes our root. Okay, so the root would then be 3. All right, very simple there. Okay, on this one, the denominator is 2, so it's a square root. All right, and we find the square root of 49, which we should know is 7. Okay, and then our final example right here, we have 4/9 to the 1/2 power. All right, so that one, again, my denominator is 2, so I'm going to have the square root of 4 over the square root of 9, and that's going to give us the square root of 4, which is 2, and the square root of 9, which is 3, so we have 2/3. All right, and that is it for law 6. So like I said, very simple, very quick, only about a minute long. So that is it for this video lesson. Okay, if you have any questions, again, talk to me, ask me. If you need help, same thing. All right. So that's it. I hope you have a good day and stay safe.